Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. One quick change from me. Welcome, everybody. The green screen never changes. Green screen's going to change a lot here. We're not going to actually have a green screen. You're going to see the bare wall, guys. This is going to be absolute office hours right now. Oh, hey there, Jet. Doing all right. All right. Let me do one more thing to set it up. There we go. Welcome to the absolute bare bones of a office hours. I literally don't even have my washing machine connected yet. we have it hooked up, but we haven't like fully we have to buy an adapter for our dryer because our dryer plug is wrong. So I am literally, I had to get everything set up because I had work. And for those of you guys who don't know, United States is, a lot of places in the United States, like where I am, are doing remote learning for at least part of the semester, if not the entire semester. And because we're doing remote learning for part of the semester, that part of the semester is currently, so we started today. So I had to get everything up and running to a limping status. In fact, I'm live streaming to you wirelessly, which is not always a good idea on my end, but it's working so far. That's why I wanted to make sure the quality was good. The audio is going to be a little echoey because I haven't put anything on the walls yet, so it's going to just going to be an echo chamber. You know, Darj, who's probably watching, is certainly going, "My ears, they ring." Though I think we had most of the things set up, so it's not too bad. Dryer plug, no, it's the adapter from the new, because like the newer ones are 4-prong and the older ones are 3-prong. They make plugs for those adapters at the very least. All the blood. Yeah. I'll show you what I got. I'll show you what I had. It's 3-prong to 4-prong, 14 to 30p male to 10 to 30R female, 30A, 250 volt dryer cord adapter, 4 to 3-prong, 20 inches. That's what it is. Oh, yeah. Moving is a very tiny process. That's very true there, Jet. Well, I shaved a little bit because I wanted to, I was streaming on Saturday, for those of you guys who caught me. I kind of shaved down a little bit so I wasn't super there, but the hair is actually growing back now. Did I move yet? Yes, we moved. This is my new blank bare wall that's going to get painted green shortly. This is I literally have my desk and everything set up to what I needed to work for. So. They might be, but I don't use the backdrop for my students, no. I do use a green screen, usually. Matte green wall, that's the idea, yep. Matte green wall, the lighting is already set up, as you can see. You can kind of see it because this is a little bit of a reflection. We're going to paint that wall, and then I'm going to place a bunch of stuff around it, so that should soak up some of the sound. Thank you, Commander Subba. Hey, Dead Horse, how's it going? Whew. That's what I do. But here's the secret. I'm going full digital for my students. I was doing that before this whole thing happened. I'm doing what's in education is called blended learning, which is the idea of essentially the teacher will do things like record themselves giving a lecture, right? And so at the very beginning of class, I'll sit there and I'll go, all right, let's talk a little bit. Let's discuss about any questions you guys might have. Let's see how you check in with everybody. Break people up into groups and then say, here's the assignment. Good luck. And the assignment will have a step by step, kind of here's some stuff you learn. Here's some videos. Here's some reading. And then there's 5 options. You have 5 options you can choose from to complete this assignment. Do you want to make this into a skit? Do you want to make this into a rap? Do you want to make this? Do you want to do an essay? Do you want to do a PowerPoint presentation? How do you want to do this? And so there's different options that they get to choose, either individually or in groups, and so that each way that they learn will be able to be hit in individual ways. So it takes advantage of multiple intelligences, multiple ways that people learn things. It makes it easier on my end. it front loads my work. But because I already know how to edit videos and I already know I'm pretty comfortable with technology, a lot of that stuff is easy. And the advantage is that Adobe gives me a discount for being a teacher. So I actually have a teacher discount, an educator's discount for Adobe, the Adobe suite. It's 50% off, which is amazing. And I use it for work and I use it for, because there's no limit to it. It's just saying, hey, are you an educator? Here's a discount. So it's pretty cool. Thank you so much for that sub, man. I do look weird in a t-shirt, but I literally, all of my vests and ties are grungy from move and from, moving around, so. That photo, the fancy on top of the stairs was great, yeah. So thank you guys for watching on YouTube and Twitch so far. This is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk a little bit about Star Citizen, but I want to start off with the lore stuff. The main thing I want to talk about is something that we've talked about in the past, but I kind of want to put it all succinctly. Look like Paul's redneck cousin from the Navy. Just a Saved by UE Navy t-shirt. I don't know if they'll go on sale, but knowing how CIG's strategy is, possibly. It is free flight tomorrow, by the way, guys, if you don't know. So Wednesday is going to be sort of a free flight. I don't know why. And I don't know if it's a free flight in terms of everyone has access to them or anyone who pledges. They have 2 different types of free flights. One of the free flights is if you are a backer, you get access to them no matter what. And then there's the other type of free flight is everyone gets access to them. So I don't know which one is which. People taking screenshots of the phone camera? They said all 16 stitches will be on sale? Yeah, I've been out of the loop, guys. I literally have been, the time I have spent, I have either been sleeping moving things from the old apartment to the new house, unpacking, or working. Or setting up my rig. Like, that's all I've been doing. To be fair there, the game is never working like a charm. Ever. The closest time it was 3.7. See in this flight.
Alright. I'll tell you the truth.
I mean, KFT, take a look at this. Like, how much money have they made this year? They found if they do sales, people buy ships. I'm seeing some weird feedback on my end in terms of like stopping and starting. So, hey, William Young, how you doing?
We're very much alike.
Hard to say. They're limiting it for as long as it's the showdown. Yeah. Well, we're not going to get into that. We'll get into that later. I want to do the lore stuff first, guys. The first thing I'm going to talk about with lore is something that always comes up, which is why are ships so old? Why do ships in Star Citizen, why are they so old? Because usually people, when they think of like, you know, airplanes or tanks or whatever, they're like, oh yeah, those are pretty new, or like, or things are produced pretty quickly. Or in most sci-fi, you think that things are much more advanced and think things move pretty quickly. But it's important to remember that during most of the time these ships were being built, most combat ships in the verse were being built, including capital ships that are being used today, were built during the Mezzer era. And I had a conversation with someone about this a while ago, and one of the things they mentioned, we talked. I made a joke about how like the Nazis were stupid, and in a Galactic historian, like, they're dumb. Nazis are dumb. Like this whole thing about Nazis being brilliant, they were really stupid. And someone mentioned it's like one of the reasons why the Nazis didn't produce very much in terms of like actual practical uses in the combat. Like, they made big guns and big tanks and rockets, but they're pretty, you know, they weren't very useful in terms of they still lost. It didn't really change the war. It was just like a cool toy. And one of the things that this commenter posted, which I remembered and kind of brought into sharp reality, was that a lot of practical engineering was adapted over theoretical engineering, theoretical physics and such like that, because the Nazi ideology really kind of pushed more towards the practical because it couldn't really bend into the theoretical. And a lot of the theoretical physicists and such like that were, you know, aberrants in their mind. So as a result, they lost a lot of that knowledge, which is the reason why the United States ended up making the A-bomb, which is arguably much more of an impactful weapon, even though it was because it was a lot more theory. And Star Citizen lore, there's something that's very similar, I think, is what's happened with the Mezzer era. Because the Mezzer era became focused on practical applications of military technology, not theoretical, which meant that everything was making a better gun. Not making a new gun, making a better gun, if that makes sense. So the Gladius is an example of essentially trying to perfect the light fighter. So there is no point in building another light fighter if it's the perfect light fighter, in the mind of a Mezzer-era scientist, a Mezzer-era engineer, a Mezzer-era bureaucrat, the Aegis engineers during the Mezzer era. There's no point in redesigning the Idris if you can just stick new technologies into that Idris and just redesign the frame. It already works. We already have the plans for it. Why reinvent the wheel? So it became more about churning out and trying to perfect the technology of the ships rather than trying to create new styles of ships, pushing the envelope of different things. Emperor of Mankind. Oh God. Yeah, that helped that we bombed them, but you know. So as a result, what you see, and this is actually highlighted in the lore for what became the Ark. Let me look it up really quickly. Okay. Project Vespa. So Project Vespa. So Tyak. There's a planet that's just off the Terra, the Terra system. There's a system called the Tyak system, and it was abandoned during the First Tevaran War because it was supposed to be terraformed and turned into a habitable planet after the first, or during the, but then the First Tevaran War broke out, and money began to get shifted around and it got abandoned. So in after that, the Mezzers. Decided they were going to use this half-finished terraforming project to create a testing ground. So in 2546, or sometime before that, sometime around 2546, the Mezzers started to experiment with terraforming technology to see if it could become a weapon. The idea was to make a terraformer a weapon against an enemy. Could you weaponize a terraforming beam? Because the idea of terraformation with those beams is to use long-term, consistent, low-ish power to do things like break up ice packs and that kind of stuff. So the idea was to supercharge a terraforming platform to turn it into a weapon. That's a great example of how Mezzer engineering works. It wasn't about building a new weapon that could destroy a planet in one go. It was about taking something you already had and turning it into a weapon. Apocalypse Arms is another good example. These were things that were being developed towards the end of the Mezzer era in secret, which were basically war crime machines. But they weren't like brand new experimental weapons technology. It was bigger Gatling guns and better rail guns. The obsession with the Mezzer era was not new technology, it was improving the technology that they had. So technology effectively stagnated under the Mezzers. You'd have better stuff of the same type, but you would never have new stuff because new was dangerous. New didn't fit with the profile. So as a result, after almost 500 years of between 2546 and 2793, I think. So 200 years, a little over 200 years of technological development, you have almost complete standstill. Then after the Mezzer era collapsed, after the Mezzers collapsed, many of the companies that were built at that time were connected to the Mezzers. So when they collapsed, those companies collapsed too. In fact, it became such a huge problem that directly after the fall of the Mezzers, there was a lack of heavy shipping, which is where Misk came in. Misk and Crusader exist only because of the collapse of the Mezzer era, of the Mezzers, the fall of the Mezzers. Because the companies that would make big, heavy things like the Hercules and the Hull series or the Starfarer, that kind of stuff, those companies didn't exist anymore. They collapsed, and their factories collapsed with them. Essentially, they just dissipated. possibly even the plans were lost. So you lose all of this infrastructure that was put in place because the people who were running it and in charge of it were assholes. So the reality is that if you're wondering why are we using 500-year-old ships in Star Citizen, it's because those ships were being used because of this stagnation of technology. And it's not stagnation of technology in like 40K where they literally lost technology and it's like almost like a sacred relic now because of how valuable it is. It's more like you just get a better microwave every 5 years. You don't get a replacement for the microwave, or you get a better stove, a better oven every 5 years. No one ever invents the microwave. Think of it as kind of like Fallout. You have fusion technology, but you still use transistor tubes, and you never invented the microchip. That's that kind of thing. Things just went, and now recently, in the last 200 years, technology has started to climb back out from the Meso era, and we start to see new technologies, which is why the AI technologies are coming back, all those sorts of things. So hopefully that explains a little bit about that. Better plug for the washing machine dryer, yeah. It would only make sense if you could terraform a planet to be Earth-like. Why can't you terraform a planet into a Mars, per se? I think you can with the terraforming technology, but it requires very specialized equipment. So essentially, terraforming is bespoke technology. So every time you terraform a planet, you have to build very specific types of atmospheric processors, terraforming platforms. And you have to build them in system. You can't build them in stock this is an Earth-like package and you ship it over there. It's like you have to build it in system, which is why terraforming is incredibly expensive and why it's not really very seen in vogue anymore, because of it's so much expense, because you're building everything for that operation. So if nobody comes to move to that terraformed planet, you are fucked in terms of your investments. And the UEE doesn't really do terraforming anymore. It's mostly private companies. So the name Terra. That's right. Where are the centralists complaining about the why were you called? It's called Earthforming. God damn it! None of this terraforming shit. Yeah, and Synth World is a good example. Like a Synth World is a good example of modern UEE tech. It's literally pushing the boundaries of science. It's creating an artificial planet, and I don't mean like an artificial planet in the sense of like a Dyson sphere or like a the O'Neill cylinder or something like that. We're talking about like a planet that is metal. We're talking about building a planet that is a shell that can house people. Think of it like a floating arcology with its own gravity. Hey, the prisoner. Called it terraforming. Oh, I love it. I've never seen Modern Family, so I don't know that reference there, M1. Wonder if lore has a way to explain ships being reliable, so reliable beyond components. What do you mean by it being so reliable there, William? Yeah, kind of like Cybertron, yeah. ArcCorp is a little different. ArcCorp is an actual planet. Like, it existed before they terraformed it. They just built everything on top of it. And it's not entirely covered. People, as everyone always reminds me on my little preview thing, it's not entirely covered. I know, okay? I'm just being general, guys. That's a lot of lead, yeah. Now you understand why the Project Archangel, aka the Synth World Project, is such a money sink. It's been going on for over 100 years. Actually, 150 years at this point, just about. Possibly longer. And it's still being attempted, and it's all publicly funded with UEE tax dollars. It's seen as a giant waste of money by people. It's like, it's never going to work. You're both correct. Nothing new about that yet. I have to look up the name of that, but I want to say it's the Odyssey or something, or the Artemis. The Artemis. We know the direction it was headed, and I 100% believe that the Artemis is not going to be something that CIG will write a story on and you read it. It will be something that they put into game. One of the things that I think a lot of people miss, and I think it's easy to miss because of how CIG is developing Star Citizen, is that almost all of the lore is not built to have answers. You know, it's not like 40K lore where they write stories and it's complete, a narrative, a beginning, middle, and end. Essentially, all Star Citizen lore is, in terms of the last 200 years of lore, anything that's modern, is a beginning and a middle. Sometimes just a beginning. You have the first act, or maybe the first 2 acts of a 3-act story. And the second or third act is waiting for the players to play them out. So, Synth World, that's probably going to be impacted by players. The Mysteries of Hades, impacted by players. Moving to the capital to Terra or not, impacted by players. Vandal Invasions, impacted by players. The discovery of the Artemis, the Lost System, which the jump point that collapsed. For another thing, all probably impacted by players. There's going to be a lot of narratives, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. Like, narratives, we're not talking about traditional MMOs where go do this quest and now you've unlocked the secrets. It'll be something like players are doing something, and then once they've reached a point, or if one player discovers the right thing, it will tip over, and the entire universe will start to change around that fact. They either have written or have an idea of the triggering factor for some of these events. And when they trigger, they're going to trigger large scale events. So more people can participate in them, but there's only going to be like one person who finds that jump point that disappeared or finds evidence of the Artemis. But there's going to be something that's much bigger of an impact than just that. Like, discovery of the Artemis might discover a colony, you might discover an entire kind of political conundrum. You could find an entire group of humans who've settled outside of UEE space and have completely evolved into a completely different direction as the humans from UEE. Similar to like the outsiders of Lear, who become super alienated against the culture of the UEE. So, who knows? These are all things that could involve the players in the long run. Exactly, yeah. I'm pretty certain that the Third Tavaran War will happen because of players. Or it will happen and the players will be involved in it. Why don't we have AI? Because AI always goes crazy. The reason why it was lost, a lot of people believe, is because the Artemis AI went nuts. There was an AI behind the first Mars terraforming project, and it collapsed. The atmosphere collapsed, killing everyone on Mars. Like, every time humanity has built an AI, it's gone crazy. Gone crazy and tried to kill people. Yeah, the planet, the system that was lost, they were struggling to sustain it, which is why they were doing a big PR campaign, including like a senator or the CEO of the company had came out to the system to kind of like tour the system to make sure everything was good when the jump point collapsed. Yes, the Romulans are right in the Star Citizen universe. I don't know. CIG did tell us a lot of stuff they want to make, and what we did get so far. I'm cynical towards CIG. Still no Theaters of War. Well, to be fair, like let's talk a little bit about the controversial side of non-lore stuff. The reason why Theaters of War isn't out is because the network still sucks, and no one wants to play Theaters of War if you're jittering all over the place. I played the beta of Battlefront 3 or Battlefield 4. I think it was Battlefield 4. Yeah, Battlefield 4. And I remember the frame rates and inconsistencies being garbage. I remember it releasing and people being like, what the actual fuck? Nobody wants to play a Battlefield-style game if your network sucks ass. if the lag and latency is terrible, if the packet loss is horrible, and essentially what Theaters of War is the background of Star Citizen, the networking stuff of the PU, which is kind of in a shitty state. So I don't think we'll get a Theaters of War until they can get the client to network refactor in, which includes things like iCache. It's not going to happen. I don't know, Darsh. She might have. I haven't read all of the stories. Yeah, essentially, imagine like a slightly better version of the DB4 netcode at launch, and that's what you got with Theaters of War. You don't want it in that state. But you won't there, Off Minion, because by this discovery, if you were there as it's being discovered, you can jump through as well and start looking through these things. Planets are huge. Like the space in a new system is going to be massive, and charting it is going to take a lot of effort, because you're talking about like charting, hundreds of kilometers or thousands of kilometers of space in some systems which are unbelievably vast. It would take generations to do that on Earth. With modern in the solar system and in Sol, to use that kind of technology to map everything. Even if it was drastically scaled up, it would still take a long time. And the idea of that kind of those discoveries are going to be: you find a new system, that's great. You find planets on that system, you have to look through every nook and cranny of those planets to find this cool stuff. It's going to unlock more things than just, hey, I found a jump point. That's going to be cool for the person who found it, but then all of the stuff that comes tumbling out, a Pandora's box of interesting and terrible things. So what are you talking about? It's here. It's here. What are you talking about? Thank you for them biddies there, Nick Lubsley. I'll have to read through that, Darsh. It's weird. The new place is weird. It's quiet. I can be loud and it's not that bad. Oop, not this. Ooh, nice. I'll have to take a look at that. What did you post there, Ritalin? D-Dog, thank you so much for that 6 months of support. Shots and cheers in chat, guys. Let's get you some more beers out there. I got you a link. I got you a link. You gotta ask permission if you're not a sub. There you go. Go for it. The Zeus? Yeah, the RSI Zeus. What about the Zeus? It's cool. It's the first commercially available spaceship made by RSI. By the way, I'm going to pull this up, but I think I'm going to change my office hours background to this. This is going to be the new office hours background right here. It's an office. It's got Pico in the background. This is from Huskaha. It's fantastic. There's a couple of people who I use whenever I pull like screenshots for thumbnails. Huskaha, Raul Antonio, Glenn, Butyong. They're all, you've probably seen a lot of those screenshots. So. Kid friendly. Oh yeah, for sure. One of those relics is gonna be great. And I guarantee you CIG will put that out there. I mean, I don't think you'll be able to fly it, but you might be able to investigate them. Have a good night there, Darsh. Thanks for hanging out, man. That penguin is fine there. Don't be bad at Pico. I think the reason why few streamers talk about it is because it has no real point in Star Citizen right now, and lore overall tends to be a YouTube game more than it is a Twitch game. Of course, I haven't been looking at. I'm sorry, those of you on YouTube who are watching. That was the Carrick office, yes. Have I seen the subscriber perk this month? I haven't there, Joseph. Galactic Historian Bar, exactly. What's my favorite bar in game right now? Probably G-Lock. It looks really cool. Not G-Lock, Wally's. Wally's just looks really cool. I hate the design. Anyone who's ever worked at a bar with those rotating, like the circular stuff, knows that it's just an absolute pain in the ass to try to tend. But I love the style. It's like the style of it is so cool. Will there be sex in the verse? No. CIG wants to try to keep it as close to teen as possible. So you're probably not going to have anything like Witcher's prostitute, like brothels or anything like that. I mean, obviously it exists in the verse, but it's not something that they're actively going to put together. I wouldn't be surprised if you had something like a strip club, CD strip club in Star Citizen universe, but I don't think it's going to be like Witcher. Then it's Old 38. If you're talking about like an old dive bar, it's going to be the Old 38. G-Lock is too corporate, and K&W's is too smarmy. Old 38 on Grimhex. It's quaint. Do I think CIG is will add a lot of... Yeah, they will. I mean, a lot of the problems... This is going to sound trite, and it's probably not 100% true. But a lot of the stuff, a lot of the issues that CIG has right now is foundational. Things like iCache, things like server meshing, things like server to client issues, and a lot of things like dynamic mission systems, salvage, exploration. A lot of that stuff is being held up by those other aspects. I'm not going to say those things can come rushing out afterwards, but they can't even be developed in many serious ways until those back-end stuff are done, so that they can work within those systems rather than having to develop them and then redesign them. Which is one of the problems that CIG's had recently. Is they came up with a problem. They talked about this a couple weeks ago, where server meshing, they couldn't get two servers to talk with one another because at a fundamental core, CryEngine doesn't do that. Not many engines do, but each server in CryEngine is authoritative. So they had to take totalitarian, they had to take fascist servers and turn them into commie servers. Learn to share better. And as a result, they had to, there was a lot of aspects of the game that were built with that in mind, that they had to go back and rework. Tech debt, and some you can actually see through the monthly reports. Some programs, some of the teams have already finished with that. They've already finished the server meshing integration stuff. They're like, yeah, we're already done, because it was very minor or not very huge. And other ones haven't. So we don't know the extent of it, but it's obviously going to be an issue until that happens. So exactly, yeah. Paying the measures, yes. I don't think that works that way, unless you want to pay $4.99 to be able to go between servers. They're a profit of fear. That's called the EA method. That would be really funny. The hot coffee club as a nice nod and wink for like a strip club in the verse. Server toll, exactly, online. I'm glad I made you spit your drink. That's the point there, Grim. The servers can't be, they can't have possession of a player or of something. The servers have to entirely swap everything between each other. So they can't be like, I'm in charge. Every server has to have equal authority to control something. Whee! Thank you for that 25 months there, Pramster. $20 to use a jump point. Oh, God. Don't give CIG ideas. And CryEngine absolutely hates that. Well, it wasn't built with that in mind. It was built to make a single-player game. You know? It was built to make Crysis. 30K, exactly. Yes, Premster. For those guys who are wondering, I did move, which is why you see this background instead of my normal background, and why I'm in a t-shirt and not in a suit. They probably should have built their own engine, but at this point, it's a little bit of like 2020 vision, hindsight, 2020 hindsight. They were originally planning on building something fairly quickly, and their idea was very limited in scope. See something like Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, something more like that, but multiplayer. That changed when they got more money. But by the time they had gotten more money, they were already investing in people who knew how to build the CryEngine, all these kind of things. Effectively, what CIG is doing is taking the CryEngine as the base components of the game, of their own engine, and building their own engine. Now, it's not proprietary their own engine. It's not something that they're building that they could sell and market as their own engine. But they even internally call it Star Engine. It is so radically different branched from the CryEngine and the Lumberyard engine that it is effectively not the same engine. Think of it as something like how Call of Duty's engine was originally a version of idTech. They basically took the idTech, I think, 3 engine and then modified it, and they modified it so much that and eventually they just bought the rights and just created their own engine called the Call of Duty engine. I think, or I don't know if it's Call of Duty engine. It's called something else, but it's the same idea. So hindsight's 2020. They should have built their own engine. They didn't. Now they're building their own engine with parts from another engine. I mean, yeah, but to be fair, the prisoner were 8 years in. If they had built their own engine, we would have probably been further along than they are now. However, again, they didn't know they had that amount of time, so. Shit changed, yep. And dear Lord, thank you so much for that Prime sub. Shots and cheers to chat, guys. Well, New World works with it nice with it now. It does, and it holds over 1,000 people, but it's not quite the same technology. Darj and I got in an argument about that. Hey, Enderlord, man, how you doing? See you on Twitch and on YouTube. That's awesome. Subscribed on YouTube, on Twitch, and chatting on YouTube. I love it. Exactly. It's a pretty big scale. It's pretty big. But I also am fairly certain that they use AWS servers. They use the cloud AWS servers, and I'm pretty sure they used SOCs. OCS. They use OCS technology because of how they load and load out the game. You can see it. It's just the draw distances are much shorter because they don't have to be, because you're not traveling at incredible speeds. You're traveling at the speed of somebody else. And when people are like, we want mounts for faster movement, and it's like, oh, it's a lot of gameplay concerns with New World, and the experienced Star Citizen player in me goes, no, they don't want mounts because their rendering distance sucks until they can apply for something like Vulkan into that engine. It's going to suck. So you move any faster than the speed of walking, you're going to see the pop-ins. And you can already see the pop-ins a little bit with New World if you look far enough. Yeah, there's a couple of things. The closest thing is probably Dual Universe, but the Dual Universe is much more basic. And the way that I like to talk about Dual Universe is that Star Citizen is building kind of a universe. It's trying to build like a hybrid of a sandbox and it's a sandbox with a story. There's like story elements happening around it. They're building with NPCs in mind, and it's kind of more akin to a traditional MMO, but in a format we haven't seen since like Star Wars Galaxies. Whereas Dual Universe is building a Eve, and it's like a hybrid of Eve and Space Engineers, but as the MMO. There's a lot of those kind of elements. It's a bit of a survival game. It's a bit of a kind of an open world, but there's no real NPCs. It's all players. Everything is run by players because it's easier to do that than having to develop an AI to have that stuff be done. Smo! Yeah. What are my thoughts on Cyberpunk? I've seen some people on Reddit say that Star Citizen's graphics are bad compared to you mean to Cyberpunk? What do you think about that? It really depends on your point of view. I think CIG is focusing right now a lot more on scenery, and their scenery is going to be a little bit more basic than Cyberpunk. CD Projekt Red has the luxury of building studio lots, as I like to call them, in video games. Essentially, like what you're seeing in the cities, in the landscapes, is not a fully rendered every building you can go into kind of thing. You don't have to see the buildings from all these different directions. You only see them from specific directions, and then they only render them in those directions. So, if you see a line like of buildings, but it's just a line of buildings at the edge of the map, and you can't get out there, on the other side of those buildings is nothing. You only see the parts you can see. So they can maximize the fidelity of that area, how good it looks, how immersive everything is. And CD Projekt Red is really fucking good at RPGs, semi-open world, open world RPGs. Wow, they are fucking great at that. So I think it's a little unfair to compare the two. It's like comparing any single player game with an MMO. They're going to look different. So Star Citizen is going to be hampered by that a little bit. But I also I think calling Star Citizen's graphics bad is an overestimation. I think that's just salty gamer talk. Star Citizen's graphics are horrible. It's like, no, they're not. They're really good. They may not ever be top of the line, but there's not going to be many MMOs that have the ability, the sheer volume, size, and ability that Star Citizen has that also have that fidelity. I think that's the important thing to keep into context, is that Star Citizen, in its context, is really, really good looking. And it's always been, and probably will always be. I don't know if there will be any MMOs that will even attempt to challenge Star Citizen's level of immersion and fidelity. Simply because it's expensive and stupid. Chris Roberts has got a lot of money and a lot of balls. That's why he wants to make it like that. So, yeah. Well, so graphics do matter a little bit for servers, because a lot of the details you're seeing in like a game like Cyberpunk, the little details, the trash, the bits of debris, the greebles on the exterior of a building, the neon signs, all of those are objects, and the server will have to count those as objects if you put that online. And if you've ever seen a hacked version of GTA 5 done online, they don't hack the online version, they hack the single player version. And some of those graphical bugs look fugly because it's not designed to do what they're doing. Because it's designed for a very specific thing. The server just cannot handle that amount of information. The details are what matters. And Star Citizens, that's the reason why CIG or why the PU chokes right now, is because there's too much detail. And those details are causing the servers to explode. So iCache is their attempt to try to limit that strain on the simulation servers. Essentially what CIG is creating is a giant web of different things that pretend to be a game. You know, various different types of servers that track player movement, that track, you know, simulation, that track the economy, that track the equipment. Like everything is going to be in its own little server, which is being tracked separately from the player and the game. And it's all being run at the same time, so you think it's all one thing, but in reality it's like 17 different things in the background. You can have all three, but your audience would be incredibly small there. This lust said, I like in the old saying, you can have something fast, well done, or cheap. Pick two, not all three. In games, you can have high detail, large quantity, or fast rendering, but you cannot have all three. You can, but you would limit your scope or limit your user base. One of the common things I've seen with video games is AI. I may have been harsh. I didn't mean to really like. Question is, new 64-bit? I don't know, Solar Deck. It might be. Just making a mess until server goes, oh dear, exactly. It just loses it. It explodes. Let me go back to the question. A lot of games, I think, tend to focus on graphical fidelity, gameplay, or AI. Those teams seem to be the trifecta. Does it look good? Does it run good? Does it have good universe, like a good artificial intelligence? And you could pick two. You can have good AI and good gameplay, but it's going to run like garbage. Or you can run great and have great AI, but the gameplay is going to be kind of doo-doo. And that has a lot to do with like developing for consoles, because consoles are very limited in terms of the power. Or you can kind of like the power, you can try to balance all three. And some of the best games tend to balance those three or to favor one or the other. Like Fear, for instance, is a great example. Its graphics are all right for its time, not great, but its AI are fucking amazing, and the gameplay is solid. It's like the way the game plays is solid. But you know, put into context, it's pretty good for what it was able to do at that time. When do CIG ship sales start? They probably will announce it, but usually it's West Coast time, Pacific time, U.S. Pacific time. I'd assume either 9 a.m. or noon, one of those two. But you'd probably have to look at the website. Is this a smidge too loud? Sure, I'll turn down a little bit. Freaking wife aggro. Sorry, Gunner. Hi, Gunner's wife. What about a medical Ursa rover that might be an ambulance for you looking for? That might be work pretty well. Yeah. We need to grab a medical vehicle like a Cyclone with an extended bed. I agree. I think you could do like a medical Ursa. I think you could see that. Yeah. Normally, I apologize, guys. Normally, like Restream has both working, both chats working, but for some reason, since the move, it's just does not want to work properly. Here, I'll do this. Just more stuff to reinforce the role playing. Well, it makes sense because there'll be some places where you just can't. You won't be able to. You won't be able to access. Like you'll need like a rover to get in. Either you can't land, or you know, like heavy wooded areas or rocky areas. I don't think a medical Ursa would be very popular. Why'd you use a Cutlass Red? Because a Cutlass Red won't be able to land everywhere. Also, you can bring you can drive an Ursa right up to the battle lines, and it's not the size of a building. It's not a giant shoot me sign. You can kind of hide an Ursa. What about a medical MPVU that was promised? I don't know if it was supposed to be a medical one. I think it's supposed to be a rescue one, which I don't think is the same as a medical one. I told you, no one believes me when I said it's like, is that a wig? It's like, oh yeah, it's a wig. No, my hair I'm a chia pet. I'm a human chia pet when it comes to hair. They just grow really fast. I found out that it's partially a medical reason. My thyroid is a little off. So, and my doctor's, it's not a medical condition in terms of like a life-threatening or something I have to take medicine for. But in a recent like blood work and checkup with my doctor, she was just like, it's not bad. It's not great. Just monitor it. It's like on the test she gave me, it was like, like 10 is the medical, like here's some drugs, take it for your thyroid. And I was like at a 7. Should be lower than that for a healthier thyroid. So I think that's probably the issue as well. Medical equipment. Okay. Oh, that's interesting, Bishop Buford. I'd heard there was a rescue version which has like an arm for rescue. There was actually, no, the arm is supposed to be for repair. We'll see if it's probably something that they're working on. I don't know. We'll see. Why do you think CIG made all the ships, other ship first from CitizenCon and not refining ship that was voted for? Because the refining ship requires refining, which isn't in game until 3.12. Question, what about the Vanguard? I think it needs some serious work. It's very OP right now. It's funny, Gunner, because someone was on here on Saturday, I forgot who it was saying it was nerfed, that it got hit with a Nerf bat. It's interesting that I've heard it both ways, that it's super OP or it's super underpowered. I think it carries 1, maybe 2 MPVUs. It's a new YouTube studio. I can't get Restream to work since YouTube downgraded the studio. I feel it's been downgraded anyway. It's probably, I think it's a side grade. They just broke a lot of things and added some cool stuff. Took an Ursa out in Hurston and it was challenging and fun. Ursas are fun to drive. Not as fun as the Rocks. Rocks drive like crazy dune buggies. They just hit everything. They're nuts. They're freaking awesome. So does it require refining, but what about the Starfarer or any other ship that has gameplay? CIG changed the way they're releasing ships? Essentially, CIG has said, I think starting mid last year, that they tend to not want to release ships without gameplay being actively developed for it or finished. Like they said, they didn't want to release the Blue until there was more gameplay for it. And while they released the Blue, there wasn't any gameplay for it. You have things like down status, dragging has been added. They're going to be doing surrendering. They've been trying to get that done. So it's obvious that they're actively trying to make the content for the Blue. So I think that's the reason why you're not going to see this stuff, because they still get a lot of shit for, like, the Starfarer and the Reclaimer both have their jobs don't exist, yet they're available and they're hundreds of dollars to buy. And Starfarer is designed kind of like a piece of shit. Watch Morphologist's video on the Starfarer if you want a good laugh, because he rips that thing anew. Does the Nova Tank have some sort of room for ground troops similar to the Merkava MBT? It's not an MBT, but it's not. Oh well. I've seen the size of it. No, it's a 4-man team. I think it may have some room in the chassis, but it depends on, because between concept and release, it's probably going to change a little bit. It may have enough room for like maybe 2 extra troops, but it's not designed as a hybrid kind of thing. It's definitely not like a BMT. It's not like a BMT where you could like carry troops and then it's also basically a tank. it's much more like its size and its scale is more due to its power, because I don't think it uses any fuel. I think it's entirely fusion powered. So like components like power plants from ships to run it. It's a size 4 cannon on that thing. Like it's not fucking around. Starfare is an FPS level. Yeah, and that was the mistake. It was designed like an FPS level and not like a ship. Don't get me started on the missiles. I did an entire captain's table on how missiles are broken, and everyone lost their mind when I said take out missiles. Just fix them. It's like, yeah, they're not going to fix them until like May. Like missiles are going to be this bad. There's almost no point in doing any dogfighting outside of like very predefined matches. Otherwise it's just going to be missile spammers everywhere. What did you ask? Oh, you asked something. Oh, yeah. I don't know if they might actually... The Ursa seems to be the main APC that CIG is pushing right now, which doesn't make a lot of sense. The Ursa doesn't seem very APC-like, though I could see it being kind of like an MRAP. No, not even MRAP. It's a very weird position because it's an exploration vehicle, but you could use it to deploy troops because it can hold about 6 to soldiers, including the driver. Info on the Merlin nerf program? Nothing yet. We did a damage trajectory on exploiting extrapolating available weapons and damage, and that the Inferno is going to be pumping out less damage than a Hornet. Yeah, I don't think, like, I think that not just the Inferno, but the Ares line in general is going to be one pump chumps. They're snipers. They're not really designed as damage dealers as much as they're designed as precise shots with their size 7, 8, or whatever 8 weapons. They're also proprietary, though. You can't change them out, so they may have higher damage output than is currently possible with any size 7s. So it could be a size 7 that shoots like a size 9 weapon, because again, you cannot swap them out. Once you buy them, they're stuck. Hey, Steve. Yeah. Everything hurts. How's the moving? Everything hurts, and I'm going to die. My legs hurt. My arms hurt. My body is sore. Every time I move my body, I can feel every muscle in my body. But we're almost done. What we have left in the house, in the apartment, is our patio furniture, some plants, some like smaller plants, the cleaning stuff that we're going to use, our trash cans. We have tools and cleaning stuff that we left at the apartment because we're going to clean up. We're going to kind of vacuum it up and wipe down the surfaces and everything before we. We're 98% done. We're just down to that. You know, they say like the last 10% of anything is the hardest, is as hard as the first 90%. It's just a lot of little bullshit. A lot of little bullshit. I will be strong. They said that they're going to make changes to 311 to missiles. They did Nemesis, but they also said that they've completely changed the missile, the MOM system, the missile operator mode is going to be pushed to later, and that a lot of the changes that come with the missile operator mode is going to be pushed to the later date. So they're going to make some changes to the missiles, but I'm hoping that they nerf them because they're bad. They're bad right now. Yeah, no. The hope is that I don't move for another 30 years. You know, what you're seeing right now is going to be my studio for the next 30 years. My mic's having trouble coming through. There might be some issues with connections, just because my we might have some issues. We're having some issues with the audio is a little echoey here, just because nothing's on the walls to soak up the audio. Yeah, new house. Hence why the background's different and I'm wearing a t-shirt. For science, why don't you create missions to find microscopic life or certain herbs or anything used for ingredients to make something in the name of research? You get a sample. I mean, yeah, that's the idea. Like, that's the plan in the future. That's the reason why you have, like, the fruit is pickable right now in some parts of, like, Hurston. The idea is to have a bunch of different, like, bespoke and or procedurally generated like plants. Science is going to be, I have a feeling like science is going to be a lot of take this equipment here, use this equipment, take the readings, come back to us. I don't think I think a lot of people are thinking about exploration as being like find jump points and chart them. It's like there's going to be like 4 people who do that. However, there'll be thousands of people who find those new planets or go to a current planet and do some research. A lot of it's going to be mapping, and a lot of it is going to be go here, use tool, bring back readings. And some of that, when players get to, my hope is at least, when players get to know how to read those readings, they can use those readings to other things. Like they can take scans of an area and go, there's laranite in this ground. Like seeing the chemical traces of laranite deposits, so that you don't see the laranite deposits, but you know it's in the area, so that you can say, hey, miners, there's a field of laranite out there somewhere in this region, you know, within this area. Pay me money and I'll tell you where it is. I don't think it'll be like actual science in the sense that like you'll have hardcore data, but I have a feeling that they'll do everything they can to make it accessible, but also repetitive, if that makes sense. You're not going to have like actual science where you see so many variances and different little things. It'll be like 4 bar graphs that each, depending on the levels that they're at, will determine different things. I don't expect it to be super in depth. It's just going to be simple, and repeatable, but varied in the simplicity. Think like mining. Mining, every rock you encounter has different variances of like the sweet spot for mining it, and they're not all that. No 2 rocks are going to be exactly the same, even if they're the same material. It's procedurally generated. However, they're all the same. you kind of, it's more about learning how to control your laser properly and hit that sweet spot, rather than memorizing exactly which rocks does what. That's kind of my thought. This is, again, not what CIG has said. CIG said none of this. This is my belief based off of CIG's design and what I would hope to see in the future, where a good scaling skill is essentially once a player has seen enough of it or kind of can Wikipedia it, they'll know the how to fix it, how to fix a problem in medical, or how to do the assignment. Yeah, like, essentially, a lot of people don't realize that I think exploration is going to be a lot of go here, scan this area, come back. That's probably going to be at least 50, if not 60% of the gameplay. Go to region, scan region, go to next part of region, scan region, go to next part, scan region, return with data, I pay you money now. That's all it's going to be. And a lot of people are like, that's boring. It's like, yeah, because you're doing the bitch work that needs to get done. The mapping. It's that it's every so often when you're going to do that scanning that a ship has showed up that's the derelict, or a asteroid that wasn't charted suddenly shows up, or a derelict is there, or pirates are there, or you find a distressed signal coming out. Those sorts of things. That won't happen all the time, but they will probably be randomly generated based off of where you are. Stevie Dancer, I suggest that people use afterburners. The center UI shakes no matter what the setting they have, and all ships target shape violently. So do all guns uncontrollably. That might work, yeah. Or you find a nest of Vandal, exactly. Kind of, though. The way the ED does exploration is there's if I remember correctly, it's a lot of cookie cutter stuff. It's a lot of stuff you can't interact with. Here's a new planet, yay, way to go. Whereas when you're looking at Star Citizen, it's going to be something that's very something you can go out and touch, something you can interact with. You won't just see an asteroid; you'll see an asteroid that has minables on it, or a derelict ship that you can explore, or pirates you can fight that you can take their stuff, or a distress signal that you can then go interact with and investigate. I don't think you'll see something like the old Tessa missions ever again, or the PI mission, but you'll see some variance in there. Because a lot of that stuff is what they talked about with the procedural generation that they're doing, or the procedural generation, the dynamic economy that they're doing. Because a lot of stuff's running in the background. It's essentially creating an algorithm to choose what the player sees versus what is going on in the background of all the players. Pick the planet. Yes. I think they'll have a few, so a loop like that for biology, geology, and astronomy. I think you may randomly find something slightly above average value, a plant that could be cultivated and sold to make drugs or meds, etc. Exactly, yeah. Stuff like that. It'd be cool if they could make exploration more about provisioning and laying groundwork for outposts and cache. I think those will also happen, but I think that's mostly going to be around with the homesteading stuff. Discover sandworm on the moon. Sandworms. Sandworms exist. They're on Lear 3, I think. So, just no one wants to live on Lear 3 because it's always on fire. Well, no, it's not always on fire because sandworms eat everything. The worms on the planet make it so uninhabitable that the nomads of Lear 3 are... the reason why they're nomads is because they can't settle. If they stay in one area, the sandworms will just destroy their homes. So they have to constantly move. Find the Kathak. Ooh, yeah. Retweet and spread the love, guys, if you get a chance to. The worms aren't in game yet. Yeah. We'll see how that works. Now you have the probes, and you can land and go in the, around. Exactly. Yeah, you'll have. I don't know if you have probes in Star Citizen. They'll have probes in Star Citizen, but that'd be a cool idea to swap out missiles for probes and be able to fire probes at locations to get better data. We're whalers on the moon. Ride the worm, Muad'Dib. Trust me, the number of worm signs and Dune references that'll happen when Lear 3 comes into game will be astronomical. I saw that sandworm the other day. I want that in game. Haters ruined it. Which race do you think will take the biggest dumps? Asking for a friend. The biggest dumps? Asked by a guy named a Care Bear Happy Times. The biggest dumps. It's a good question, actually. It can't be the Devarin, because bird poop is too liquidy. I've never seen turtle poop, so it could be the Xian. I imagine that Vandul's dung is probably pretty liquidy as well, because they look like they're probably like amphibian, you know, or like fish evolved. I'll just say the Banu. Banu had the biggest shits, just because they're huge. They're super tall. Banu shits are the biggest. They were industrial grade. When's the release of the beta for shit? What's the other one there? Knowledge. The other one, Ashes of Creation, I think it was. Yeah. Adhesians poop QT fuel. Yes. Question: do you think CIG will set up HABs on restricted planets like Noble, Ellis, or Nexus? Yeah, they'll let you set it up. You're going to get attacked by local UE forces, I think. Dune memes coming in 2022. Yeah. Do you think the Vandal will? That's ambitious. Do you think the Vandal will invade the PU once Squadron 42 and Odin system comes to the game? Probably. I think it's probably more like, yeah, they'll probably have some incursions once they get more stuff in there. Poop gameplay confirmed. We will get space worms that eat ships. I mean, these space worms are fucking huge. If you've seen the sandworms from Star Citizen, from CitizenCon, they're like half the size of a freaking javelin. Which is races into throwing dung. Humans, we're the best shit flingers in the whole galaxy because we're just dirty monkeys. Just harnessing my inner what was his name? Z. Frieza. My inner Frieza. Using the question tool, I'm not really, though I think it's still active. If you're going to ask questions, I was kind of ask, I'll pick them up as I go. Yeah, it would be interesting to see creatures. My only hope that CIG does is that they don't do this stupid bespoke shit. I think that's just a mistake, you know. Make a couple of creatures that are bespoke for various regions, and then just take those creatures and just copy pasta in a lot of places. As long as they're you just make them rarer in other places. But don't make every fucking system have its own bespoke creature. That's just a fucking nightmare. Make different creature types, maybe, and then just reskin them differently. I got the link. I got the link, knowledge. Fuck, that's expensive. Star Citizen was expensive. Jesus Christ. I'll have to save some money and drop that for it. Thank you, knowledge. For that 20 months. Heston flings dung for sure, especially lefties. Oh, of course he does. Since most planets are terraformed, I think the Space Cow was on every planet. Yeah, Space Cow's on every planet, but, I think it's a mistake to do something like the um, the Microtech Yeti and the Pyro Crab as like, oh yeah, those are the only, you can only go to there and find them. It's like, it's, this game's never going to fucking come out if that's your case. You've got 100 systems to populate. Yes, even if only half of them have one populated planet, that's still 50 bespoke creatures that you have to create for every system. Not including, yeah, the Crusader whale. I'd be surprised if we got a... And yeah, the Space Cow is actually a Terra. If there was a behavior / AI set like the mammal, bird, lizard, fish, then skeleton and model. Yeah, I think that's the key, is to get a good skeleton and model base and then just pop those out from different variations. Get a Microtech Yeti. Did I try DU? You know what? I haven't had access to DU. I wish I could, but I kickstarted it and they still haven't gotten back to me about my Kickstarter release. I just haven't gotten the access to it, so I'm just not been bothered to do it yet. I may not be able to. Yetis of yellow. I think they'll probably do more than just change the colors, but like it'd probably be a lot less work if you had the skeletons and the animations, and then like say you had a lizard. You have one lizard that's just plain, and then another lizard which has different scale types, and then has like a different, like a big fin on its back. There'd probably be a lot less work to do that than it is to build brand new lizard which is different sizes. Yeah, they lay eggs. The space cows lay eggs. A wild Skywalker. Yeah, have you ever looked at the picture of that space cow? At the bottom where you see the quote-unquote udders, those are all eggs. They're really more like giant chickens than they are giant cows. But I think they also slaughter them for beef. So like meat, a lot of the meat in the universe comes from space cows. So it's both a source of protein and a source of, I guess, protein. Yeah, but you're not going to have a lot of... The problem about having that bespoke creature for every system is that it becomes incredibly expensive and time-consuming. Starting to take them a long time to get all these systems out. Probably longer than 10 years, to be honest, in terms of getting every system they want out. Hopefully it'll be shorter, but CIG is very slow on these kind of things. Even to get the pipeline running, it takes them a while. Like, even today, like, how many ships have we gotten out this year? And the pipeline has been done. They have, like, maybe, like, less than 10, I want to say, ships have been released this year, even though they've finished the pipeline years ago, and it was supposed to be the fastest thing they've done. You know, don't get me wrong, it's also nice because some of the stuff is just catching up on the old ships they haven't released yet, and they haven't done a ton of concept ships which aren't, like, immediately to release. But at the same time, it's like, for something that supposedly has been done and is very efficient, it's been slow, even to right now. So building the pipeline takes time, and then even then, CIG's timetables are really slow. So honestly, this is going to be unpopular. I know that the CIG says they're going to release the Star Runner in 311.1 or .2 or whatever. Don't. Just release it in 312. Like, because when's 311 coming out? October, November? You know, like, at that point, you have less than 2 months away from releasing 312. Like, why bother? You're going to burn yourself out. Like, does anyone here actually think we're going to get 312 released before the end of the year? Like, at this point, I'm pretty sure that 312 was going to release sometime in January of 2021 rather than in 2020. Just because they're a month behind in their schedule. unless they either massively cut back 3.12 and just drop a bunch of stuff back into the next patch next year, they're going to be late with it. September already, and in theory, this patch is supposed to come out at the end of September. Now, usually because of CitizenCon, they delay that for a month, so it's usually at the end of October is when you get the fall patch or the third quarter patch. Yeah, but CitCon doesn't exist this year. And CitCon last year was November. And I agree, Angelo. I think you could do something the way that No Man's Sky did creatures without making it super samey. Because to a degree, especially in lore, that makes sense. You're going to a terraformed planet that's been terraformed by humans. Yeah, it's going to have a lot of similar creatures because humans terraformed it. You're not going to have a lot of the original creatures who lived on that planet still around because we killed them all. So we're going to populate them with the creatures that we have, which are like cows. Maybe some of those invasive species like the blind oni crabs. Those little floating jellyfish guys. They look kind of like Metroids. Yeah, I also wouldn't expect like a very diverse ecosystem, biosphere and ecosystem for, most of the planets in Star Citizen. With staggered development, they're already working on 3.12 right now. Yes, but that doesn't mean that everything that's on the list for 3.12 is going to make it into 3.12. It just means that they're working on it. And fortunately, a lot of stuff that might be going into 3.12 is reliant. There's always stuff that's reliant on systems that are being put in later or put in before it. So like you need to have something released in 3.11 in order for it to release in 3.12. Do cow eggs taste like steak? That's a good question. Bring dingoes to every planet, please. Yeah. Sort of like how the Firefly showed terraformed planets had horses and cows for food. Exactly. They've even said that like the space cow, which has got its own, the Kazi Grazer is what its name is in lore. But the Kazi Grazer is a Terra. It's a native animal of Terra, the planet Terra, which is a different planet in Star Citizen. People get confused because Terra has always been used in sci-fi for an alternate name for Earth. It's used in 40K as Earth, the name for Earth, and it's also used in BattleTech as the name for Earth. So people are like, Terra and Earth? What are you talking about? It's like, Terra's a different planet in Star Citizen. So yeah, the Kazi Grazer is a native animal of Terra, and it's been used as essentially replacing the cow in Star Citizen's universe. Why is that? That shouldn't be working. There is no giveaway right now, guys. Sorry about that. There's no giveaway. Sorry. Moving. I fucked that up anyways, but moving fuck ups. Space cow, cousin to the platypus. Exactly. Star Citizen will move at a normal speed after the core systems and Squadron 42 is done. Yes and no. I think Star Citizen's always going to move at a slower pace, but I'd be happy if CIG had a steady pace, because what we've been seeing right now is a slowing pace rather than a steady pace. If CIG was able to release, one system a year, 2 systems a year, one gameplay aspect a year, something like that, it would at least be comforting in the sense that they could produce things at a good even pace. But the problem is that it's been inconsistent. Some years are speed up, some years slow down. I think the last year that really we had any kind of speed was like 2017. 2018 and 2019 felt very slower. 2018 was slower than 2017. 2019 was slower than 2018, but in like 3.7 was really good. 3.7 was fantastic, and like the Jumptown Wars just like 2019, late 2018, 2018 to early 2020 was the best time for Star Citizen in terms of gameplay, but in terms of development, it was slower. And then 2020 has been just absolute crawl. It's been crawling over broken glass for the entire year. Yes, there's been a pandemic, and that may have slowed things down, but CIG has been adamant saying that it has not slowed them down. So I don't think there'll be a huge content dump for Star Citizen once Squadron 42 is done. I think you'll probably see, I think a lot of what's going on with Star Citizen is its back-end features just need to get finished. It needs iCache, it needs server meshing, it needs a server-to-client refactor, it needs the dynamic economy. All of those things need to be coming in before you have any dump. I think you'll probably have a speedier development, but not fast. It's not like suddenly the game's going to be done. It's just you might see like salvage comes out and once that's done, and then another gameplay a year later, or a system is out, Pyro is out next year, and then the year after that you have Nyx, and then Odin, and then maybe I'm definitely not going to like sit here and go, yes, Star Citizen will get better after Squadron 42 releases. We have no idea. Capital gameplay after Squadron 42 released? I don't know, man. I am not a fortune seeker. I am a fortune seeker. I'm not a fortune teller when it comes to that. CIG has said that they don't want to release any of the capital ships until you see them in Squadron 42. It also helps that you probably couldn't even play them with 50 players. You probably could put a Nitros in the game right now, and it would run as well as any other ship. It's just there's no systems to make the multi-crew ship fascinating or interesting, and you only have 50 players per server, so you could put the entire server in like the freaking deck of the Idris. It's a huge ship. I don't have all of the knowledge of 8 years of Star Citizen. What I will say is if you're a backer of Star Citizen, do not back the game exclusively for what could be. Potential is nice, but back the game for what it is right now. If you're okay with the current pace of development. And with the current pace of development, I can't really suggest backing Star Citizen. I'd say wait a year. If you're someone who's looking to get into the game now, it's like it's just there are so many hurdles in the way for CIG to develop that and there's just so little content. And I don't mean like content in the sense of like what's coming out patch to patch. I mean like there's just so many things which have to be made before they can go to they can produce other things, and those things are so long term out. iCache might be the end of this year. I still have a feeling it'll be the end of this year at the very earliest, but that could easily come out next year. Server meshing might at the earliest come out end of next year, could come out in 2 years, and because so many things are blocked by that, just not going to see a lot of steady development. So it's really hard for me to sit here and go, yeah, buy Star Citizen, back the game, until those things happen. I've had a lot of fun in Star Citizen. I enjoy the game, but man, is it hard to play. It's hard to just play as a game. Yeah, you can easily obsess over it. Like the best thing you can do for Star Citizen, if you really want to buy the game, is buy the game, play it every patch, and then go find another game to play. And I would also argue that the reason why there's so much obsessiveness is, hey Tycho, I see. Let's say it in 1 second. And I see your responses as well there, Moonshadow. I've just kind of got on my own tirade. I'd also argue that, and it's an MMO. And MMOs breed obsessiveness. You know, people will obsess over their chosen MMOs. So it's to a degree within reason for people to be super fascinated and focused and fixated on Star Citizen. Look at Eve. People who've no-life Eve for the last 10 years. You know, it's the only game they play. So it's the nature of the beast. But at the same time, Star Citizen's way in early development for that. Maybe we can get something on the equivalent of Reavers, Boogeymen in space, and we got Psychotic Men in deep space. It'd be exciting. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you have things like the Shipjackers, which might be a cool thing for that one. Tycho Hast, do you imagine if 50 players could even do something on a capital ship? I guess we need about 5 to 10 people already very functional. I mean, the problem is that in a server with 50 people, even if you only need, say, 15 people to run a ship, that's still like more than a fifth of the entire server population. So you need to get those people on the same server with you, which is difficult. Then you need to launch the ship without someone sneaking aboard. Then you have to have something to do with that huge ship with 15 people on it, and those 15 people need to have gameplay that they can do other than just sitting around with their fingers in their nose. So you're just not going to have much use for big capital ships until you can increase the player cap. You need to have like 100, 200, 300, 1,000 people in a server in order for an Idris to start becoming viable. Because when you have 1,000 people in a server, you could have 100 people in one area just beating the crap out of one another. And then an Idris makes sense. You know, putting 15 people in an Idris with that railgun, death. Just pure death. Pure wholesome death. Just chef's kiss of death. But until you can get to those levels, it's just a nice big floating empty vessel that can take you from point A to point B kind of fast. The fundamentals of the game still might not be achievable, and we might have to settle for something less. It's just a game we have to accept. Yeah, essentially. It's also a first MMO for a lot of players. Exactly. For a lot of people who never played MMOs or haven't played MMOs for like 20 years. Happy Star Trek Day. Yeah, it is Star Trek Day. I forgot, Buster. Sorry, I've been moving all day. Exactly, Pramster. They're working on it. We can see that with the turrets gameplay rework. They're definitely working on revamping some of the missile operator mode. They're definitely working on multi-crew. It's just we're far. Excuse me. We're still far away from those kind of things. So. Sword, yes. I love me some Star Wars. I love it when Captain Picard says, "You're a wizard, Harry." To Luke Skyman. But Tycho, to answer your other question about how a capital ship will work, because I think that's what you were asking. I reread the question. Here's how I imagine capital ships functioning. You will have very specific roles, and this is based off of my experience with, speaking of Star Trek Bridge Crew, as well as Pulsar. Both of those games are multi-crew ship games. They're single player or multiplayer, but they're co-op. But they do a good job of doing this. What you do is you have very specific functionality given to very specific roles. So you have a pilot or a navigator, somebody whose sole job is to move the ship. Then you have a weapons expert, someone whose sole job is to aim the weapons. In this case of something like an Idris, you'd also have people in turrets, but you'd also have somebody who is operating the targeting systems for the turret, or for the main gun, or the automated systems. Then you would have someone like an engineer whose sole job is to maintain things like shields, but also they maintain things like power. Power distribution, because you're not going to have enough power to produce everything at once, so you're going to have to move power around, pull power from other systems, like say your jump drives, to things like your shields or to your weapons in order to make them function during battle. And if something takes damage, you need to be able to reroute power back and forth, as well as sending out like repair crews to kind of fix issues, because you're going to take damage, and then those places need to get fixed in order for them to function. And you're also going to need likely someone like, scanner, somebody who's scanning or is identifying targets in battle, or just identifying threats. And then to a lighter degree, you could have someone who's communications, whose sole job is to talk with other ships in the area, because even though you're on Discord, you meet a random ship out in the middle of space, you're going to want to talk with them, and they're likely going to have some dialogue options with NPCs, probably nothing crazy. See something like Wing Commander, I'd be my expectation, something like that, where you have some stock dialogue you can do, because almost all of those multi-crew ships also have that ability as well. Multi-crew games, I should say, being able to contact and open comms with other people. And then you have the captain, and the captain's job in any multi-crew ship is to make sure that this chaos of fuckery works. Captain's job is literally to be the director, and you would be surprised how important a captain can be. Because when you have someone who's piloting a ship, you have someone who's aiming the guns, you have someone who's making sure the power is going to where it needs to be, and all these other things, you need someone who is telling those things to happen, who's orchestrating this chaos and this whole thing. Because if everyone relies on that one person to get things done, then things get done smoother. And eventually, over time, crews who work together in games like Pulsar or games like Star Trek Bridge Crew, when you start working together long enough, those crews start doing things automatically. A pilot will instantly start maneuvering the ship to a good firing solution for the gunner before the gunner even asks them to move into the right direction. They'll start moving it up because they'll know where to go, and the engineer will start rerouting power instantly to the right systems, because they know that there's going to be a call for rerouting power. So when you see a show like Star Trek, where you see like the crew members are able to like wordlessly communicate things to one another, it's a little bit Deus Ex Machina in some cases, but after playing a lot of those games, it's true. Like, you just learn how everyone acts almost by instinct, simply by playing with them. It's like playing a good kind of MOBA or other kind of team-based like co-op game. Once you find that rhythm, it's really easy to just fall into it. But that captain needs to be there to ensure that when those moments are thrown off, when someone does something unexpected, that they are able to direct the direction. That's kind of like how I see multi-crew gameplay, based off of what I've seen in multi-crew games and how Star Citizen has talked about it. Okay, so we've been playing a game today. Pick one character from each Trek show to be on your crew. You also get 2 Star Wars characters to add to your crew. Okay, I'll do this crew. It's going to be hard because it's going to be a lot of DS9. You know what? I would pick Pike from Discovery as the captain. He's got a good versatility to him. You'd also need, or if I was the captain, I'd be the captain. You didn't need the captain. Navigator is Tom Paris, because he's the best pilot in the whole goddamn galaxy. By accident. Engineer would be Chief O'Brien. First officer would probably be Kira Nerys, I would say. Yeah, Kira Nerys. Chief of Security would probably be Worf, because you can't go wrong with Worf. Officer. Let's see. And then for other Star Wars characters, for Star Wars characters to the crew, you can't go wrong with R2D2. R2D2 and Qui-Gon Jinn. Why? Because he's a man who likes his gambling. He's got a gambling habit, and I love it. It'd be nice to have a better way to organize large multiplayer actions in the PU. I think a lot of the bigger crew gameplay progression in the MMO part of the game is, definitely. We talked about that earlier, about it's tied to server meshing. Regarding specialized roles, one issue I have with that is how can we have interesting specialist roles? The role of a shield engineer doesn't seem to become more directing the shield. That's the thing, is that it depends on the ship. Large ships, massive ships that require a shield engineer, you're going to not take that ship out unless you are going into combat. Because it's going to be so expensive to take out a frigate to use. You take out a frigate when you need to blow something up. like a frigate is not just going to be hanging out in space. You got to remember that with multi-crew, the roles are going to go from general to more specific. So the general role is captain, pilot, weapons, engineering, and communications or scanning. That's at most, so 5. Or like science as well. You can lump those all together. Those are the 5 generics. But then you get to like weapons officers, the different types of weapons, the different locations of weapons, if you have more than one weapon that you can fire. With engineering, you have people who can do shields, some people who are going to do engines. Rerouting power is still going to take some time and some effort, as well as fixing everything that's on fire. Trust me, I've played enough multi-crew ship games to know that an engineer is nuts. Their job is absolutely insane, because their job is to make sure that the power is balanced properly at all times, make sure that the shields are balanced and everything's working, make sure that the things that are on fire are not on fire. An engineer is crazy busy through most of the game. But again, multi-crew ships are mostly about having the flexibility for doing those things, making them effective. But a lot of Star Citizen is not going to be crazy action. It's going to be preparing and planning and then executing. A Carrack is going to be mostly exploring. So you're going to have an engineer, but their engineer might be also a scientist doing some scientific stuff and that kind of thing. And the person who's going to be taking an engineer on a Carrack is not going to be looking for crazy combat, you know? They shouldn't be, at least. A gunner on a Carrack is probably just a part-time gunner sort of thing. Having a multi-crew on like a Connie makes a little bit more sense, but like most hull ships, like the hauling ships, like the whole series, the Miss Hull series of ships, are like 3 people. Even like the Hull D is like 4 people run a Hull D. That's it, and that's like to put in like the 2 turrets, a pilot and a co-pilot. So the ships that are designed for more like mundane activities generally are going to be smaller crew. But if you start getting into the crazy action where you can require more, then the crew kind of expands. Are Drake ships better at being on fire than others? They're the best at being on fire. Drake ships are like #1 fire ships. Any multi-crew space games I'd recommend. The first one I would recommend is Pulsar: The Lost Colony. If you have not played Pulsar: The Lost Colony, play it. Artemis Bridge Simulation, or whatever it's called, it's very dated. I wouldn't do Artemis. So if you... The best part about Pulsar is that it's VR capable as well, and it's 4 to 5 people, I believe, so if you can get 4 to 5 people to play it. It's not too expensive. It's on Steam. It's very versatile. The graphics are a little dated, but its focus is not on the graphics, it's mostly on the gameplay. Now, if you want something that's a little bit higher graphical fidelity, and you have a VR system, though you can buy it without a VR system, Star Trek Bridge Crew. It's a shorter amount of time. There's not as much content in it as there is in Pulsar. And Pulsar lets you do things like away teams and has you like FPS weapons and stuff like that. But it is still a very good game for the prices you get. see if you can replace those things. Jake says, to be honest, I still don't like that the whole ships and mining ships have guns and can't replace them with something. If I could, and another shield or generator, you probably wouldn't be able to do that, but you might be able to do something like scanners, you know, roof scanners. Because that's like what the Cutlass Red does, is like its turret is now, it becomes a toilet, but the actual like dome of it becomes. I wouldn't be surprised if you could do something like that, or like tractor beams or something like that, replacing them. But they just don't know what the capability is of their component system yet, because it's not fleshed out yet. Problem about having ships without guns is that Star Citizen universe is very violent, and it's based around the idea. A lot of the Star Citizen's gameplay is based around combat. It's going to be either the threat of combat or the active act of combat. It's based around that. So every ship is going to have some kind of gun. There are some ships that don't have any guns, like the MPVU. But everything's going to have some kind of weapon on it. Pulsar is fantastic shenanigans. Buster and I used to play it with it was Loken and Will, Spazzy, and Buster and I used to do Wednesday night shenanigans. That was fun. Well, so the thing is that racing ships are dual purpose. A lot of racing ships are not initially racers. They're racers, but they're also being sold to the civilian market as interceptors. So they're used as both racers, but they're also, because of their speed, used as chase ships, as it were. It's kind of like how cops will buy, police in the United States will buy, like, essentially muscle cars and sports cars as pursuit things that can keep up with higher speed cars. Evolve Harder asks, I know there are Titan suits and other ground fighting machines in the lore, but are there ground-based drones? Wouldn't mind having a remote operatable death machine for bounties. There might be, but I think CIG wants to stay away from drones as much as possible that are not active pilot drones. Like AI drones wouldn't make a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised if they did combat drones for like ground-based combat. As a kind of as a pilotable thing. They kind of have that with the mines, the combat mines that can drop with the Nautilus, but there is no references in lore that I know of those guns, damn guns of those drones. Isn't Cygnus Spider-Man a miner or a drone? It is, but it's also pilotable. I think at Eve, where you can put guns on the mining starter ships to put guns and tractor beams on haulers, but those are pretty useless in those. We see some riot shields for both humans and their mechs for FPS. It'd be cool to see riot shields. I'd like to see that too. But you're not going to be able to dual wield. That's the problem. You're not going to be able to have a pistol and a riot shield. CIG's already said that it's not going to be possible. And I've seen in New World where they've said that they also can't do dual wielding, and I think it's an engine issue about doing it. I mean, a Vulcan drone full of missiles, that'd be awesome. I mean, I'd love to see something like the same size as something like, again, I've been doing like here recently, so like Tau shield or gun drones, that kind of thing. Something that's, but those are like autonomous, something that's more controlled by a player. So you could have like a weapons officer on a ship release like a combat drone that can fly with the troops, or kind of do reconnaissance with it. So you can move a little bit faster. It's smaller, so it's harder to hit, but it doesn't have a ton of health, so it's easier to take it. They do have handgun style shotguns, and I'm thinking about a different game. There are handgun style shotguns in Star Citizen, but you're not going to be able to have a shield and a shotgun, like, and the pistol out. You can only have akimbo anything. And unfortunately, having a riot shield and a gun would be akimbo. Yeah, as long as it's controllable, as long as it requires somebody kind of actually controlling the drone in the background. So you're basically sacrificing a player on the field for a asset. Yeah, they do have thrown shields, yeah. Did they mention Squadron 42 to have... yeah. Those are like deployable, like you can just toss them and they'll deploy. Think of like the shield bubbles from Halo, you know. Like currently we have utility slots in game, so like you hit the utility, I think utility, it'll be something like that, I assume. We're going to have personal deployable shields, right? Yes, that are going to be kind of more like waist high or chest high shields. I think chest high cover, you kind of deploy it and then you can cover behind it, but those shields are going to have a limited lifespan. Well, the reason why the Aurora hasn't gotten its box there, Jake, is because the Aurora because the box is a physics issue. The Aurora is supposed to have, they're supposed to be able to have the box become part of the ship and then removed from the ship. It's the same reason why there isn't docking. It's the same reason why the whole series isn't in game yet, because they want to have the ability to put on those boxes and remove them. It's one of the same reason why like the Mustang Alpha doesn't have its functioning cargo bay. It's like you can activate the cargo bay, but you can't put anything into it. It'll just disappear into nothingness. And it sometimes happens. That happens with like the 300 series too, where you try to access the cargo bay and put something in it, it'll just disappear. So it's an issue of like adding cargo to a cargo grid that becomes part of the ship, and then you can also still remove it. Same reason why escape pods don't work. It's an issue of it's a physics issue that they're working out, that they're getting close to, because they're actually talking about, actually doing the freaking docking stuff. So yeah, so it's just a completely different entity, but then it merges with the physics grid and then can be removed from the physics grid. Because currently, like, anything that's in the ship is a physics grid, which is the reason why boxes will jitter around on ships, because they're separate entities, and sometimes they'll just phase through objects. White Wolf asks, do you think CIG will let us destroy orbital platforms, space stations, and then to be physicalized rather than indestructible hunks of metal? I think they would, but I also think that you're probably looking at something the way that ED does, where like Elite Dangerous, technically you can destroy the stations, but the stations have just ungodly health pools. Like, you're never going to destroy a station in Elite Dangerous with ships. The closest thing that happened was a player managed to trick a station into shooting a capital ship that was near the station. And so the capital ship and the station started just wailing on one another because the capital ship got registered that it was being under fire, so it fired back at the station. The station registered it was being on fire, so it fired back at the capital ship. So they just started wailing on one another. And I think the capital ship got the station down to like 10% health after hours of firing at one another. It'd be something like that. It would require something like a full squadron of Idrises to kill something. That would be my guess. But that would also require CIG to physicalize those things. So. As for regarding mining, do you think we will ever be able to mine into a planet instead of the surface of rocks? Maybe. I think one of the things that CIG could do is essentially just take big rocks, big ore nodes, and bury them into the ground, and then you just kind of blow up chunks of those ore nodes and just go into the ground. But I don't think that's in the cards right now. I think you're just going to have surface rocks mostly, because that would require, I think, planetary tech rework. Unless they were able to like mesh the caves into with like a rocks, I could see it working, but it definitely requires some work by the teams to focus on that.